Trump confronted by a woman veteran at a live press conference. What he does next leaves everyone in shock. Have you ever felt completely abandoned by the very world you sacrificed everything for? Your sweat, your tears, even your blood, only to be met with nothing but closed doors? Sophia Walker, a courageous veteran, had once faced bullets on the battlefield. But the hardest battle of her life? Finding a stable job after leaving the military. She was turned away time and time again, rejected without a second thought. Yet she had one thing left: determination. And that determination led her to make the boldest, most unexpected decision of her life. In the middle of a high-profile press conference, with hundreds of journalists watching, she stood up, locked eyes with the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and said the words that made an entire nation hold its breath. "Mr. President, I need a job." What Trump did next didn't just change Sophia's life. It sparked a movement that shook the entire country. But why did his response leave millions in absolute disbelief? Stay with us, because what you're about to hear will leave you speechless. The icy wind of a bitter Washington, D.C., winter howled through the streets, sending dry leaves swirling along the sidewalks. On a worn-out wooden bench in Lafayette Park, just across from the White House, Sophia Walker sat in silence. Hands buried deep in the pockets of her thin jacket, she curled into herself, not just to escape the cold, but to shield herself from the emptiness gnawing at her soul. A year ago, she was First Lieutenant Sophia Walker, a decorated officer leading combat logistics operations. She had commanded troops in Afghanistan, coordinated vital supply lines, and rescued fellow soldiers from life-threatening situations, making split-second decisions that meant the difference between life and death. Back then, she had been responsible for hundreds of soldiers. Now, she couldn't even get a hiring manager to read her resume. When she left the military, she had believed her years of service would open doors. But reality hit harder than she could have imagined. Dozens of job applications, all rejected. Not a single meaningful explanation. The moment employers saw the word veteran on her resume, they didn't hesitate to turn her away. "We're looking for candidates with industry experience. Your qualifications are impressive, but we're unsure if military culture aligns with our corporate environment." The same excuses. Over and over. A silent verdict, not just against her, but against thousands of veterans just like her. Her savings were nearly gone. Bills stacked higher by the day. 3 days ago, an eviction notice had been taped to her door. A woman who had once led soldiers through war was now facing the hardest choice of all: buy food or pay rent. That night, in the emptiness of her apartment, the television flickered on. A live press conference filled the screen. President Donald Trump stood at the podium, speaking about the economy, job growth, and America's future. But none of it mattered to her. She felt forgotten. Then, in a single flash of defiance, a thought struck her. Wild, reckless, but undeniable. She was going to find the president. She was going to ask him one question. "Mr. President, can you give me a chance?" Her pulse raced. It was a terrible idea. Security would be everywhere. She could be thrown out, or worse, arrested. But deep down, she knew the truth. If she didn't do this, she had nothing left to lose. At midnight, Sophia stood up. Her eyes burned with determination. Tomorrow, she would step into the biggest battle of her life. No bullets, no visible enemy, but more obstacles than she had ever faced before. She grabbed her worn-out coat, tightened the strap of her bag, and stepped out of her apartment for the last time. Her fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. Trump didn't flinch. A small smirk tugged at the corner of his lips, his eyes gleaming with unwavering confidence. "She's never worked in government," he said, his voice carrying effortlessly over the murmurs of the crowd. "But she's served this country on the battlefield. And I trust the judgment of someone who's risked their life for America more than I trust half the bureaucrats running this town." Across the room, a senior White House advisor leaned toward a colleague, whispering anxiously, "Should we put a stop to this? This is too risky." But Trump had already made up his mind. He turned back to Sophia, his voice steady, commanding. "On Monday, you will report to the Department of Veterans Affairs. Not as a favor, Not as a publicity stunt, but because you stood up and demanded what should have been yours all along. The room erupted into a wave of hushed whispers. Cameras whirred, capturing every possible angle. Reporters scribbled furiously, some exchanging skeptical glances, others quietly debating whether this was a genuine moment or a calculated political move. Sophia stood frozen in place. A storm of emotions crashed inside her: shock, disbelief, but above all, a profound sense of responsibility. Never in her life had she imagined getting an opportunity like this, especially not this way.
But now,
with millions of eyes locked onto her, backing down wasn't an option. She took a slow, steady breath, squared her shoulders, and met Trump's gaze with unwavering resolve. "Thank you, Mr. President. I won't let you down." Trump gave a firm nod, then turned back to the press. "Any more questions?" A reporter shot to his feet, skepticism dripping from his voice. "Is this just a political stunt? Do you seriously believe that someone with no prior government experience can make a real impact?" Trump smirked, crossed his arms, and delivered a response that made the room